Today I'm going to draw this Kingfisher in Tayasui Sketches. Hi everyone, Steve Elliott here again. Hope you're all having a great day. Today I am drawing in Tayasui Sketches. And I say drawing deliberately instead of sketching because this is definitely a drawing. I wanted to do something that was going to really make me concentrate on observation, looking at the subject, studying it, and trying to render something, I'm not saying realistic, but as accurate as I could. Because I've noticed I'm getting quite lazy when I'm painting digitally. So, for example, the portrait I did of myself, it was really initially very, very dodgy. I was happy with the end result, but getting there was some really dodgy drawing. So I felt I need to concentrate much more on rendering something accurately initially before I start wading into something. So that's why I've picked this subject, and I'm also decided to do it in Tayasui Sketches instead of Procreate, say, because the tools in Tayasui are very limiting. You've got a nice pencil, you've got a nice watercolor brush, you can transform a layer, and what I mean by that is you can sort of enlarge it or shrink it a little bit if your drawing's a little bit big for the canvas. But I don't know if in the paid version, but certainly in the... Actually, I'm just looking at, there's a tool on there, the knife. I bet you can cut and crop and stuff, but I didn't. I wanted to do it all with an eraser, and that was it. I wasn't allowed to use liquify tools or transform other than for the initial getting it the right size on the canvas. So that was kind of a goal I set myself and limitations I set within the app to try and draw accurately. Because in Procreate or ArtRage, the temptation, or Art Studio Pro, any of those apps, the temptation is there to use the technology and help that, sort of use it as a crutch to sort of tweak things with a liquify tool and crop and move stuff around. And I really didn't want to do that. So this is a drawing concentrating on observation. So what I did, having said all that, I started with a single layer and I sketched out my Kingfisher, looking at the shape of the bird from the photograph, which I got from Pixabay, the free library with copyright free images. I'll put a link in the description below if you want to have a look at that, because they've got some awesome source material to use for painting and sketching and what have you. So I sort of rendered a reasonably accurate sketch with all the main details in. So there was the outline, I've got the all the main feathers that I wanted, and then I put a wash on, a watercolor wash, and that was really to speed things along a little bit and help me not have to do so much shading. And I was kind of, you can see with the watercolor, I've gone on really loose, and I was tempted to do a really loose, tight sketch. But I thought, no, I want this to be as accurate as I can and detailed as I can. So, although I put this initial wash on, which is pretty hit and miss, it only took a few seconds to put on, I then went in with the pencil and I used the second finest nib in the pencil. That's the only pencil I used throughout the sketch. I didn't do any tilting or anything. Most of it was, well, it might have been the odd tiny little bit, but most of it was done by hatching and just sort of sketching with single lines sort of penciled in. I didn't draw every sort of strand of the feathers or anything like that, but it is definitely an operation in shading, as it were. And I really took my time, continually looking at the drawing, and I basically worked from the head and just worked my way down very, very slowly. So as you can see, I am changing the colours quite a lot. So I've sort of got blues in there and greens. And actually, with the default, one thing I'm not happy about with Tayasui is the colour picker. It's not my favourite colour picker at all. So I started off by selecting a few blues and turquoises that weren't in the colour palette and added them to my palette so that I wouldn't have to go looking for them a little bit later on. And I kind of stuck to the natural colour of the Kingfisher as best I could, but I still sort of put in a little bit of artistic license and got some slightly different colours in there than probably were what in the photograph, especially in the dark areas. I was putting dark purples in and what have you. So as you can see, I'm sort of basically working my way down, changing the colour of the pencil, and I'm hatching away. When I get to the bigger areas, I'm almost scrubbing the pencil instead of drawing it nice and neat. So you can see there, I'm sketching a lot rougher, and then when I get into the finer detail, I really take my time, and I was using really high chroma colours, so bright oranges, yellows, blues, very few greyed off colours. Even in the shaded area, they weren't really greys, they were very dark colours. So I suppose they were shades technically, but very dark. There was still a lot of colour in there, even though they were dark. I hadn't sort of gone for the neutral grey side of the colour picker. I went for the one where the colour is still in there as well. You can see I'm sort of in that loose area. I get that in really quick because I'm sort of scribbling in lines in the big areas. So the feathers, in actual fact, will I'll be able to do them a lot quicker than the face, because I sort of took a long time over the head, around the eye and everything. And the feathers, because they're much bigger, I was able to scrub them in a lot quicker. And I was changing the colour all the way. I toyed with the idea of sort of getting all the blue over the complete drawing, and I probably would have done it a lot quicker if I'd have done that. But I was actually enjoying seeing the thing develop as I was going, and I understand now why some artists, they will finish an area. You see a lot of portrait artists that do really detailed work, completely finish an area, and then the rest of the painting is white. And I've never really understood that, but now I've done this, I kind of get it a little bit more, because I was so into seeing it come to life, and really sort of impatient to watch it develop, that I didn't want to take the time to put all the blue on in one go and then come back and put the yellow on and then build up the shading. I was too impatient, which is typical of me. So I found it better to just keep changing the colour of the pencil all the while, and sort of hatch areas in. Like, for example, I'm doing the beak now, and then as soon as I've done that, change the colour and move on to the next bit. I have to say, I mean, this was an exercise in drawing accurately, and I'm definitely ropey. I definitely need to be doing a lot more of this, because when I looked at the finished drawing and the photograph, it wasn't 100% by any means. And I could pick lots of faults with it. So I need to be doing a lot more sketching, I feel. Although looking at it there, you know, when you sort of zoom out, it looks nice. And it's a nice drawing, but it's not that accurate to the photograph. But I suppose the type of painting I do, it doesn't have to be. But that's what I was aiming at with this. I wanted to try and produce something that was a little bit more closer to life than what I normally do, just as an exercise. And it did fall short. So I'm going in there now, putting in. The way I did it, I kind of went in with. I had 3 layers. I got the initial blue layer, then I put the watercolor wash on, then this one pencil layer. So there was 3 layers, and I tended to put in the bright color first, and then went over it with the shadow color, and then I would go in again with say I've got sort of blue on now. I'd add a little bit of green in it and maybe a bit of purple. So it was building up nice and slow. You've really got to. I think I've discovered with the pencils, when you're doing pencils, you do need to be mixing those colours up and using a lot of colours in an area. You can't just use one. You can see I'm putting green over that blue now. And I'll come back to it, even though it looks sort of half finished there. I'll come back to it again, because you can see I sort of went in with the red a bit, and then so I'm sort of jumping all over the face now, adding little bits and putting darker shadows in and things. Now we're coming into the wings, and you can see how quick. And got fed up with that. I spotted something on the eye that wasn't quite right. It got this sort of shadow over the eye that I wanted to get in. Get in those sort of really bright colours there on the head. So I'm sort of I've finished the head, trying to start the wings, then seeing something else on the head, and then jumping back to that again. So I suppose it was a bit of a nightmare, really, but I did enjoy it. It took me quite a long time. This was probably 2.5 hours, maybe nearly 3, from start to finish to do the whole thing. So I've obviously speeded it up a lot, but it was very therapeutic, and I enjoyed doing every stroke. And I didn't feel as though I was rushing it like I do a lot of work where I'm sort of burning my way through it. I was concentrating on trying to make it accurate, so I didn't sort of think I've got to get this done like I normally do. I was seeing it as an exercise rather than a piece of art that I wanted to see at the end of it. It's because it's just a drawing, really. It's not something that you would perhaps, well, I certainly wouldn't hang it in a gallery, but so I don't really kind of consider it as a piece of art. I might put it up for sale on Redbubble, perhaps, because I think it's a nice sketch. And as always, I like to make sure that people know at a glance that it is a sketch or something like that nature. So I didn't finish the whole thing. I left a tiny bit on the tail unfinished, and I kind of do that a lot when I do detail work. I like to leave areas really unfinished, so I did that on here. So you can see now how much looser I've got on the wings than I was on the head, sort of scrubbing in great long lines and then going back into it again and then looking at it close and putting in little bits of detail. So I'm glad I took the time to sketch out all of the feathers initially, because it did make a huge difference. All the feathers were pretty much in the right place. I had to tweak one or two of them a little bit, but nothing too drastic. See, I could almost see that as a finished piece in itself there, where it's sort of, you've got this pencil drawing that merges into this finished drawing at the top. And for me, I could have left it like that and I would be very happy. In fact, I'd like to know your opinion on what you think to that idea, where do you have to finish a drawing, or can you just do a little bit of it and leave it? Because I felt that I did put my pen down at one point and thought, that's it. And then I kind of thought, well, that's not the point. This is an exercise. I'm trying to improve my observation skills and draw more accurately. So I thought, don't stop now. Keep going. And I did a lot more. I really went into it to finish off as much as I could. But I'd like to know what your thoughts are on off doing a painting or off doing a drawing like this and calling it finished and framing it, because I think that in the state it's in now would look really nice framed. I don't think you need it to be completely finished. In fact, I think it would probably look better than the finished drawing. Perhaps not just where it is now, maybe a little bit more. I came down a little bit more with the chest before I thought I was going to finish. So, that's just a thought that I had. So I'm going in and I'm mixing up the colours a lot, and the wings look quite ropey at this point, but I do go in, I'm sort of working on them, putting lots of different colours on, trying to get the shadows in, because I felt that if I put the shadows in, it helped me out a lot with sort of working out where I was within the sketch and what I'd got to do and which feather I was working on, because I did get lost once or twice wondering where exactly I was in the sketch, because there was such a lot of feathers to go at. So now you can see I'm starting to refine it a little bit, just building up those shadows. I have to say, when I was a kid, I had my gran bought me a book, I think the Observer Book of Birds or something like that. She was quite instrumental actually in getting me into liking art and drawing and stuff, because I've mentioned before she used to take me to the art gallery, the Josie Fry Art Gallery in Derby, on a Saturday morning, me and my brother, and we would look at the paintings and stuff. And she bought me this Observer Book of Birds, and I kind of religiously would copy all of the birds out of the book. I'll be about 6 or 7. And I did that I must have drew every single bird in the book. And our dog, we had a Jack Russell, and he ripped the book up. Oh, and I sobbed and sobbed. So my gran bought me a bigger and better book, and I've still got it now. It's really well tattered and torn, but and that was a book of paintings of birds. So I've always been into drawing birds, and I've never been bird spotting or anything like that. I would love to go, but I've always had an affinity with drawing birds, because I used to spend hours and hours when I was a kid copying out of this book and sort of learning the names of all the birds. It was a book of British birds, so technically I could have gone out and actually spotted these birds, I guess, but I didn't. I've seen one or two, like a sparrow and a starling, and one or two birds like that. And I've seen a kingfisher when I've been with my brother fishing. I'm not into fishing, but my brother likes fishing a lot, and I've been with him a few times. But it's not my bag really. I'm not into that kind of thing. So anyway, I'm sort of going off the thread. So what I'm doing now, I'm getting the white pencil, and going over and flicking in some highlights on the back of the bird, and then adding more shadows again. And I find, I know it's not quite so easy with real coloured pencils to get a nice white, proper dense white mark, but you can digitally, and I really like doing that. I like sort of laying in colour and then going over it with the white, and you can pick it out, and I do that here. I'm sort of picking out this crumpled feather. You can see that I was sort of putting in the lines there. I decided to add a new colour, so I picked a sort of a light green that I felt I wanted in there. So I've added a few colours to my palette. So I'm just sort of working my way down this drawing, following. I mean, the thing with sketching is you and your shading, all of your lines have actually got to follow the contours of what you're drawing. So you've got to think three-dimensionally as well. You can't just scrub the pencil in any direction. You've got to think of the shape of what you're drawing, in this case the kingfisher. So I'm thinking of the shape of the feathers and how they're falling, and drawing the lines to make sure they follow that surface. And I think that's the key to making it look I don't like to say realistic, but I suppose realistic is as good a word as any. So this is getting close to the point where I feel that it could be considered to be finished. In fact, I think I sign it at the point where I think it would have been okay to leave it. So we're getting quite close to it. The odd thing is, this drawing, I kind of went down with the red of his stomach after this, and left that kind of those feathers in the middle of his body. So it was weird. So I sort of worked my way down the drawing, and then for some bizarre reason, I just totally ignored those three. That clump of feathers in the middle, and sort of worked around them. I think I did that. I'm pretty sure I don't go in, and now I'm making myself out a liar. So I just done the bottom bit and then went in and drew them. I thought I'd done the bit under the body as well, but I clearly didn't. It was nice to do this. It's sort of refreshing to take yourself away from what you normally do as an exercise. And I'm going to do more of this because I really want to make sure that I'm not using the technology as a crutch and getting lazy with my drawing. I really don't want to do that. I want to be able to sketch accurately. So this to me is as a good a way as any. I suppose I ought to get out there and do some still lifes or get out in the field and sketch, as well as just working from photos, because that's obviously the best way to be sketching. I just find it very easy to work from photos. It is an easy option, and you know, when I'm doing portraits, people don't want to sit for them anyway. So, you know, I think it's as good a way as any. So quickly scrubbing in that orange on the underside of the bird. So what I did, I actually went back in the layers there and I raised some of the colour wash and some of the pencil work, just adjusting the body slightly. So I got the orange in, then I put in some yellow and then some really pale yellow. I used the mixers where I've got sort of two colours in at a time selected. So I'd have the pure colour on the left and then either a black or a white on the right, and I could use a slider in the middle to choose different shades or tints of that colour to add highlights or shadow. So that's how I was working that. I did have a crash with Tayasui, and it was really weird. It split the watercolor layer into 2 layers, and then took the pencil drawing that was on the base layer, which I couldn't alter, and then put a white layer on top of that. So I couldn't get to the original drawing. It was really weird, but luckily enough, I could undo, and I just kept pressing undo until it got back to the original state with the pencil and the wash. But it went from the pencil and the wash and somehow split into 4 separate layers, which I couldn't use. I don't know what it had done. It was really, really weird. I've never had that happen before. So I then once I got it sorted, I locked the layers and made sure I didn't go back into them. Now this is it. I kind of like doing this rough detail on this bit of a stump that the bird's perched on, and that to me now is a finished sketch. What do you think? Is that saleable at that point? I think that is better than the finished drawing, and I wish I'd saved it out at that, but I didn't. Oh well, never mind, because I think that looks better than the finished sketch. Yeah, so I've not got much more to do. I just sort of went in, not too much detail in that stump. I was quite happy how it went. So here I'm sort of going back in, finishing off those feathers. I can't think of the word then. The feathers on the tail. I was getting a bit tired actually at this point. I was sort of thinking, should I call it a day? Should I not? But I wanted to actually at this point finish it, so I did carry on. And I must have signed it at some point, because I signed it way before I actually finished it. Notice there, I did change the shape of the feathers a little bit. I felt the drawing was off the mark slightly, so I kind of tweaked them. There we are. So that's what I considered to be finished. I signed that, and then now I think, no, you know what? I am going to go back in and finish it as a drawing and do the whole thing. So I go back in, and it probably took me about another 20 minutes, I think, to just add those final few feathers in the tail. It was nice doing something so detailed. I think the last thing I did that got any detail in it, I did a peacock and a tiger. So I think I am going to do a little bit more, but not because I'm interested in producing art this way. It's because I feel that I need the practice. And, you can't always... It's good to, I think, realise your faults and try to improve them, as well as just keep churning out art all the time, or not art, but you know what I mean, paintings and things. I think you can always improve. I've been doing this now for over a year, and I look at some of my first videos, and I think, oh my God, what was I thinking putting that up? So I know I've improved over the year, the last year. With the work I'm doing, especially some of the paintings. There we go. That is it. That's my finished Kingfisher in Tayasui Sketches. So, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, a big thumbs up, as always, is much appreciated. If you're new to the channel and you've enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing, because I have lots of videos like this, and I would love to be sharing them with you. So hopefully I'll see you all in the next one. Bye!